that's when I found out what peanut butter jelly time is all about.
And on that note, folks, welcome back to UnDisrupted, a special live ISTE preview episode. This is dropping right before ISTE Live, which is coming to you live from Denver. How many more times can I say live? We'll figure it out. I wore a special jacket, Adam, for this event, but we got to get to our opening debate, and then we'll bring on our special guest. I've gone to ISTE Live probably, I don't know, maybe 15 times. And when you go to these conferences, there's always the great exhibit hall and the vendor hall. And it's fun. It's amazing. It can be overwhelming somewhat. But what I love is the vendor swag. So tell me, if you can remember, what is the best piece of vendor swag you've ever received?
Ooh. I don't know. You know what? I got some that are really good. A couple that popped to mind. One, it was interesting. It was a hangover patch that a company had. So on one side of the packaging, it was the company's branding, and the other side, it was like, please put this patch on before you go out and enjoy the afternoon activities. Not that I utilized it, but I thought that was to me, it was one of those that I just remembered. I'm like, how cool is that? Because this is something people are going to take, they're going to see it, and they may share it with other people. So yeah, there you go.
I was going to ask you if it worked though, but you already said you didn't use it. So I was like, well, that's no fun. I've seen some amazing swag. I've seen, like, just recently the uptick is paddles, which I'm into pickleball. I'm into pickleballing now. So, like, to me, I see that and I'm like, ooh, I want one of those. So I'll be on the lookout for that when I go next week. But no, I think probably the best is, really strangely enough, it was you and I actually did a keynote at ISTE. And we got, which is the Virginia affiliate of ISTE, and we got a little snow cap, a little beanie cap.
Oh yeah.
I still wear that. The 3 weeks out of the year in Texas when I need to wear it, I still wear that beanie cap, and it's so soft. And I don't know why. Now that was maybe a speaker gift, not so much a vendor hall gift, but I do love that.
That was a good beanie. I think my wife took mine. Which normally happens with really good swag. The kids or the spouse takes it, and and they get all the love and joy out of it. I don't.
Well, the person who sees probably all the swag and then some is our special guest today. Jennifer Ragan-Fore is the Chief Experience Officer. I have to say it like that. Chief Experience Officer at ISTE. Jennifer, welcome to the show. Tell us what's the best piece of swag you've ever seen?
Oh, wow. I went to an event once where they gave out an iPad. So that was a pretty amazing piece of swag. But for most events, I think something that's really useful and great for travel. Everyone's sort of in the midst of things. So I've gotten some great little travel gadgets.
Yeah, I get those the water bottles and the battery chargers, Adam, like that stuff. I get that.
Oh,
yeah. My kids end up taking it from me. Yeah.
The little tools that help you fix things, like when your eyeglasses break or if you do something on a piece of equipment, those are great little toolkits.
You're talking about travel. I remember one year there was a vendor, and they will remain nameless to protect them. They had these magic 8 balls, and I think the fluid inside was more than the 3.5 ounces.
Oh.
And so some of the teachers had them in their carry-ons, and they couldn't take them on. So there was this big pile of magic 8 balls at TSA checkpoint that teachers couldn't get in their carry-on bags. So that was so. If you're going to ISTE, word of advice: bring a bag for swag.
Right,
so,
a swag bag.
A swag bag.
I love it. That's trademarked by Adam File, ladies and gentlemen. So before we get to the questions, Jennifer, let me ask you, what makes someone? How do you become a Chief Experience Officer? What was your path that led you here?
Oh, good question. I think so much of my role is really focusing on what are those experiences that we want to create for our community. And so when I think back on probably what contributed to it, so when I was an undergrad, theater was one of my 2 majors. And so creating and orchestrating a big production, a lot of things are very, very similar. And then most of my career, I've worked in education. And so either working on events for educators or working my first role at ISTE when I started a number of years ago was working within membership and community. And so getting to really be in touch with that community and did some of that work there. And so it was a really natural marriage, I think, between my events background and working with educators in the community. And we just have one of the most amazing communities out there. I feel so lucky to get to work with our community members.
Yeah, it really
So
is it's like a family reunion too when we all come together, right? Right, Adam?
Absolutely.
yeah, so I got to ask a follow up on that one. Based on your job title and your experience, do you find that friends and family always want you to be the one who plans things?
Oh
Or do you
yeah.
find yourself always in that role?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a little bit of a control freak, so that probably suits me well. I don't
That
mind being the
helps.
one to plan things. Definitely.
Yes.
So tell us, like, how do you go about preparing to host an event like ISTE Live, which is the largest U.S. event? It may be, worldwide. I don't know yet. I'm just going to say it. I know it's the largest ed tech event. Educators from all over the world are at ISTE. So how do you go about preparing to host an event like that? ISTE
Yeah,
Live.
it starts many, many years before the event. We sign most of our contracts about 10 years before the actual dates of the event. When you have an event of this size, you're really preparing far in advance. But, probably a good 2 years out, we start really thinking much more deeply about the event. And then like the last 18 months are really kind of our planning cycle. I have an amazing team, and we have an amazing team of volunteers that are helping contribute as well. And so it's being really intentional about thinking about what are the experiences we're trying to create? What are the things that are the hottest trends right now? What are the things that we're hearing from educators that they want to be able to experience? So we take in a lot of data from surveys and asking questions and sort of engaging the community and kind of helping shape it so that when we get to that 1 year mark, 1 year out from the event, that's when we really start creating those experiences. And it's sometimes it's beautiful chaos. As you get closer to the end, you have to start making really smart decisions about things. But there is a level of creativity and things percolating for a while as you try to figure out how to really kind of fit those pieces together.
Yeah, I remember the ISTE in New Orleans where it was like the very first kind of like I remember AI was just starting to creep into the picture. And then by the time the year had gone around, like you said, gathering information over the next year, by the time we got to Philly, it was just everywhere. I mean, it was AI. And now this year, of course, we've got a mix of that and a lot of other things, teacher wellness, student absenteeism, things that we're struggling with. So it's keeping on those trends. And you point out the volunteers, and I volunteered at ISTE years ago, and I think it's a great thing to do. I still volunteer in lots of ways there, and I think it's a great thing that those of you listening to this, if you can't find a way to get there, I think volunteering is one way to do it. Doing some hours with either the bookstore or just helping navigate the vendor halls, things like that. It's always such a great thing. So make sure to hug your volunteer. Actually, don't hug your volunteers because
No.
We remember the New Orleans ISTE when half the people came back with, well, we'll just say COVID as their we didn't want that kind of experience, but it's okay. But no, we're getting there. Well, behind the scenes, there's a lot of things that are happening too. So we get there and we get to see this very beautifully polished, the screen and the big keynotes and the vendor hall and the signage and everything's great. What's something that's happening? Give the folks just like a hint of what's going on behind the scenes. This will be dropped. This will be coming out a week before ISTE. So like a week leading up, like what is happening right now during this time while all the rest of us are like figuring out what we're going to pack in our suitcase and how to fit a swag bag in our bag.
Yeah, we start loading in on Monday. So in just a few days, we're going to start loading in. And so starting to see the labor coming in and marking the floor and, doing some of the preliminary things. As we go through the week, more and more of the ballast starts to sort of show up and you start to see what it looks like. But it's a mad scramble every year because we do a lot of things in public space. We're not like a conference that everything is happening in session rooms and it's just a row of chairs. And so trying to create that environment, we're trying to create that Disneyland for educators so they can have lots of hands-on experiences. It takes many days to actually be able to do that, and lots of different people. We have an army of people, from contractors to volunteers to staff, who are really kind of helping make that happen. So it's fun to see it going up. It's amazing that when it comes down in like 24 hours and it takes like 5 days to actually build. Yep. There's no trace of us within 24 hours. It's really kind of amazing.
Okay, so let me ask you this. This is kind of a follow up on that one. And I'm sure you have a ton of stories you can maybe share on this. But is there something that happened behind the scenes that you're like, oh crap, but then all of a sudden it came together at the last moment? Yeah, do you have one of those stories you can share with somebody? Because we, like you said, we see the polished product.
Yeah.
We see it all polished on the side. We don't know that thing that almost happened.
Yeah. Well, a number of years ago, we had a live band who was going to be our band for each of the main stages. So sometimes we do different kind of entertainment, but that year we had invested a lot and they were going to play people on and off. It was like really embedded into the main stage. And they were coming from Canada. And at the last minute, they couldn't get a travel visa to come through. And it was
Oh
like,
no.
the day before I was freaking out. I happened to have a contact in the mayor's office who had a contact with someone federally, and they managed to get these like emergency rush visas done, and they got there just in the nick of time. But that was one of those examples where you just kind of never know what's going to come up. We've had one year our headquarter hotel caught on fire in the middle of sessions, and so we had a bunch of sessions happening there, and had to evacuate people and figure out solutions there. That's the excitement and sometimes the challenge of a live event is you don't know what may happen and what you're going to have to kind of react to and be able to find a solution for.
Yeah, it's like planning. I mean, you're planning multiple weddings all taking place at the same time at the same place. And we all know this. If you've ever been to a wedding or planned a wedding, there's always something that's going to go wrong. You almost like you have to anticipate that it's something, the Wi-Fi is going to go down, or the presenters, some presenters just happen to not show up, things like that, especially with the girth and magnitude you guys are dealing with there. Yeah. So it's good to see that you're still smiling. Of course, this is a week before ISTE, so I'm sure when it happens, we'll see how it unfolds. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
We have lots of backup plans. There's always backup plans for things because unexpected things will happen. We've had keynote speakers get caught in like a thunderstorm and not able to make it, and sometimes rushing in at the very last minute, sometimes figuring out other ways to have somebody else step in. So it's always an adventure every single year.
So let's talk a little bit about what's about to happen in Denver. So what is something that you're really excited about at this year's ISTE Live, or a couple of things that you're like super excited about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have some new things this year. And, you mentioned AI. We have lots of AI content this year, but I think it's matured because it is that cross section. We have AI and finding ways to like build in things like wellness and thinking about how these can actually be helpful support. So we have some different areas that I think kind of feature that really well. This year we have something that we're doing that we're calling the Innovation Arcade. And it is a combination of AI and AR and VR. And it's a huge build out. There's classrooms where you can see sort of model classrooms and how they're using these particular kinds of tools. That's not something that we would have had 2 years ago because there wasn't enough experience with it yet. So to see that maturing is really, really cool. And we have a wellness center inside of there and how to use VR in ways that are going to kind of help not only with, in the classroom, but also with some of that like calming down and wellness. And I think it'll be great for attendees who are there as well, because the hustle and bustle, everything that's going on, having some spaces for that. We also have something we're doing this year called Camp Creativity. And so anybody who is familiar, last year we introduced a museum at ISTE Live, and the museum was really featuring lots of great work from our attendees and in the community, but also bringing in local educators and local artisans to do some hands-on sort of makerspace kinds of things. This year we've transformed it into more of a camp theme because we're in Denver and the outdoors, and so there's some really cool things planned. I love to be able to offer our attendees an ability to connect a little bit with the local community, see what's really important to the local community, what are the cool artists or the cool educators that are doing really innovative things. So that's a space we're really excited about. And then just a third thing is we have a new stage on the vendor hall floor this year that we're calling the Trailblazer stage. And this is all about demos from the companies, particularly around AI. So for some of the bigger companies, it might be the AI initiatives. For some of the smaller companies, they're AI companies. And so they're talking about not only how this really helps transform a learning experience, but what they're doing from a privacy perspective, how they're making sure that this is done in a way that's safe and ethical. And so that was a pretty important part to us selecting which companies are doing a really good job with this stuff and being able to kind of share that with our educators.
I love that you have experience in your title, first of all, because I do feel like, what you're describing right now is what, again, sets ISTE Live apart from a lot of, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. I do think, in all honesty, you guys create experiences. You talked about those public spaces and really utilizing that space. When you go to a typical conference, you walk the halls and then you go into the rooms and that's it. And here you could walk the hall and stumble into an AR, VR, like I said, Innovation Arcade, or have, having those one-on-one discussions and just running. It's amazing to me to see all the things that are happening. I want to ask you this, because the other thing that ISTE creates, it's interesting, is there's also kind of the side events. And so I don't know how often you get to experience any of this. Adam and I, we could share some stories. We've done, I feel like, I honestly, I joke, but I do think learning happens almost 24/7 at ISTE, because,
Yeah.
even afterwards, when the sessions are done, there's meetups, there's gatherings, there's all the different things that are happening. Do you get a chance to go to any of that? Or are you just like, I'm done, I'm going to go to my room and sleep?
Not very often. I wish it was sleep. It's usually like there's something that's come up during the day that has to be dealt with. Like, you'll see something that's on social, or you're trying to reach out to, if somebody is upset about something, try to reach out, resolve an issue. And so I get to go to a few things, but more often I'm just trying to like resolve some things that may have happened during the day. But I think that those side events are really an important part of what the experience is overall. People are not, you can get PD online, you can get PD in so many different formats. What is so special about a conference, and what I think we really try to capitalize and create those experiences, is those human connections, those in-person connections that are not as easily, able to really happen in an online environment. Being able to sit and have dinner together, being able to go to some of those receptions. We have a whole suite of programming that we're doing pre-conference that's like graffiti walking tours or educator-led tours of different neighborhoods. St. Vrain, we were have a group of people going out to sort of see some of their model school ideas, et cetera. And so those experiences, whether they're purely social or whether they're learning experiences, but kind of taking you out of the environment in a group of people, I think that really helps make the overall experience meaningful. That's what people remember when they go back. They remember having a conversation about the main stage the day before with somebody that they just met. I think you mentioned volunteering earlier. I think that's also a really awesome way to do it, especially if you're going alone and you want to be able to make quick connections with folks. Being able to be embedded in some of those experiences helps kind of create a network or make a friend on the site.
For sure.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask a question about this, but you just talked about it. The connections that I think ISTE always does with the community. That's one thing that's different with ISTE Live versus other events, that you really feel that the city or state that you're a part of for that year is also a part of the conference. It's more than just, hey, we're going to bring a local band up. As you mentioned, you're doing the touring of the local areas, bringing in local artists. So how do you go about making those connections in those places?
Yeah, I mean, so in EDCO, which is the local ISTE affiliate this year, and we've worked with them in the past as well for other times we've been through Denver. They've been great partners. They have great ideas, great connection points, helping programming. They have a special regional showcase area where they're bringing some things in as well. So I think that has been one really great avenue. We go on 3 or 4 site visits over the course of the year, and part of that, we probably could go on fewer, but part of that is being able to make those local connections, to reach out to the district, find out what they're doing that's really cool, to kind of reach out to some of those local artists or institutions or museums, other education spaces, and you kind of get to understand the fabric of the place a little bit more and make some of those connections. So it's an investment, but it's a multi-pronged approach to make sure that we're really kind of wrapping our arms around the community and vice versa. We also do local scholarships, and that's something that I think is really important too. And we have some criteria for that. We were trying to set up the scholarship to be able to focus on under-resourced schools, to increase the diversity of our attendees coming to the conference. And so that's another way, is being able to make that connection with the district and say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, is we're really trying to make sure that we're being inclusive and bringing these folks in. That's also been a good way to open a conversation, especially if they know that they're going to get some scholarships for their school. So we have a lot of different ways that a lot of different members of the team really reach out and collaborate across the community.
And when you pick these,
awesome.
Yeah, when you pick these places, I noticed, it's Denver, San Diego, San Antonio seem to be the kind of, and Philly tend to be the staples. When's ISTE Hawaii happening? Because I think I think you would love to have like the
as a board member. I approve.
You want to go there at least 3 or 4 times.
I would love to go on a site visit.
Jensen Ball at Hawaii ASCD. If you're listening to this podcast, reach out. No, so how do you pick those places? Because you said 10 years. So that's telling me you already know kind of, I know that I think Orlando's coming up in a couple of years in 26. So you know what's coming in the future. Is it part of it is just like the location of how easy it is for people to fly to? Is it some of it's like, well, this is also kind of a destination? How does that all work?
It's a combination of things. We have like a 30-point factor that we
Wow.
consider about those things, and it's a lot of different things. Philosophically, we think it's important to move around the country. Some events will stick in one city, and there's some advantages to that for sure. You get to understand the city. You're very valuable to the city. There's a lot of things that I think are an advantage to that. We've always felt like we know that not all educators and not all schools have the funding to be able to send people and pay for all the travel, et cetera. And so we've always felt like trying to move around the country is a pretty important part of that. Frankly, though, at this point, we only fit in about 12 or 13 cities. So it's not like we have, for this event,
Oh, wow.
it's not like
Yeah.
we have a huge list of cities to choose from. There's not enough housing for everyone. It's not a big enough event space. So we have some smaller events where we try to put it in other kinds of cities so that we're getting to kind of spread out a little bit further. But we don't have that many cities where we can easily fit at this point.
Vegas, Adam. We should do Vegas. Don't you think that?
Yes.
That,
The
We would fit in
Las
Vegas.
Vegas.
but you want stuff. You want to remember to take things back, and we all know what happens at Vegas stays there. So yeah, that's not
Yes.
that won't work. Yeah. If this is someone's first, if they're coming to ISTE for the first time, and I try to harken back to my day when it was called, I think it was called NEC back then, NECC. When I went the first time, just kind of overwhelmed. But what would you say are the top like 5 things? Like if you're like, okay, if I'm going to be there from Sunday to Wednesday. What are the top 5 things that I should not miss? Or 3, and maybe Adam and I can fill in a couple if you can't come up with 5, but I think you probably have plenty.
Well, I mentioned some of the new ones, but I would say make a plan for yourself. It's very individually specific, my answer. So think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. And it's not that you can't do other things too, but there's so much that's happening. So think about what you really want to accomplish. Think about how you like to learn. Do you want to be inspired and have a little bit more sit and get? Do you want to be interactive? Do you want to talk with other people, be able to do more hands-on things? So I think understand your role, what your goals are, and kind of make a plan is the first thing. I think that we have an amazing main stage lineup this year with a lot of different perspectives on AI in particular and other kinds of things that I think will be really inspiring. So I think kind of starting the day or starting the conference with attending that is an important part of it. And then make sure you're having, conversations, the hallway conversations. Don't just sort of walk by all those public space offerings, because that's where you get to get those little sparks of curiosity. And then you can find other sessions that sort of follow up. I mean, very easily, anything that you're probably seeing in the public space programming, you can kind of Google that, or you can look for that within the program search, and you're going to find some sessions about that too. So if you get inspired by something, go and find the thing that is going to kind of give you more depth around it, other people who kind of know a little bit more about it. But I'm super excited at the depth and breadth of what we have going on in general, but in particular this year, I think there are just so many really great topics. So make a plan for yourself. And then from that, you can find so many different things to plug into that. And bring lots of pairs of comfortable shoes. That's the one thing that I think
And
a newbie underestimates, that you need to be comfortable or you're going to end up like wanting to sit by Tuesday afternoon.
yeah, refillable water bottles are your friend. I mean, I think it's just
Yes.
take a snack. There's times, I don't know about you, Adam, and I'm sure Jennifer, this happens while you're there, where you'll go like, oh, it's 6:00. I haven't eaten anything all day. Like I just
Yeah.
you're just so like your brain is kind of feeding you, but your body's like, wait a minute, we need something to go off of here.
And that's really important in Denver too this year, because with the altitude, make sure you drink plenty of water and make sure that you're fueling yourself. It will hit you when you least expect it. And sometimes, you just need to like really make sure you're taking care of yourself.
So I have a question to ask you about this one, because I know this is a thing that was overwhelming to me at my first ISTE. What advice would you give to someone on navigating the vendor hall?
Oh,
because sometimes you go there, you're like, OMG, when you see the vendor hall. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, and that's the beauty of it, and that can also be the challenge if you don't have a plan. I would say the same thing about the vendor hall as well, is make a plan for yourself. And there can be serendipitous discoveries as you're walking the vendor hall, but think about what you're trying to learn about, do in your school, if there are things that you're going to bring back a recommendation to someone. Like really make a plan for the ones you want to hit, and make a plan to like set aside a morning or an afternoon to be able to really go through the vendor hall. As you're walking around, you'll find other things to discuss ever. That's what's so exciting about the vendor hall. But I think if you try to just go in sort of willy-nilly, you're only going to hit the tip of the iceberg and maybe miss some of the things that are really important or are a good goal for you. Something new that we're also doing this year is we're adding, and not every vendor has done it yet, but this will grow over time. We're adding validations. So when you go to the vendors, you go to the individual booths, you can see which ones have been validated for particular areas like, security, privacy, all the different things that we want to make sure are being, and so this is going to roll out more and more over time. We understand, I think, how challenging it is, especially with a huge vendor hall like that, for someone to understand how something is going to work for them, what's important to them, et cetera. And so you'll see this more over subsequent years as well, but being able to see, which ones have really gone through the process of having a third-party validation so you can feel really secure in what you're choosing and know what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah, getting that check mark, the verification check mark, I think is going to be an important thing going forward. And I think you're right. I think what you talked about when you navigate the hall, it's really, I'm amazed how many people kind of go in willy-nilly and just like they wander aimlessly. And I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, sometimes just open yourself up and see what happens. But I like what you said, have a purpose, have a plan. Maybe there's something if you're a CTO or an ed tech coach, maybe you're looking for a particular tool. That's what you're going to focus on when you walk in. Or if you're a teacher, maybe you're looking for some software or curriculum for your classroom. I think that's great too. What about, with all of this and kind of the stress of what's about to happen that you've planned, how do you keep yourself from this is how we wrap up every episode too. Adam and I ask this question of every guest. So how do you keep yourself from getting undisrupted? What's your trick? What's your mental health awareness? What's a trick that you do to keep yourself centered?
Yeah. I think that there's a few things. I think one is, I like to swim. And so getting up really early and getting a swim in really quickly, just kind of center yourself a little bit, I think is a good thing. I think making sure that you're making the most important things first, that you're doing the most important things first. And so prioritizing for yourself, these are the things that have to be done today. These are the things that are some outstanding problems we have to sort of work on. And, I trust my team. My team is really amazing. We have very creative, resourceful, smart, organized team members. And so trying to make sure that, I'm helping support them as well, but that they are really able to do their best work on site and that we can help resolve problems quickly. I think knowing that you have a team that's very supportive and does a really amazing job kind of helps bring that pressure down a little bit too. But frankly, sometimes we're just running on adrenaline. There are moments where there's just too much going on and it is a little overwhelming and you lose your balance a bit, but knowing you have other team members who are going to kind of step in and help with a particular thing is an amazing thing too.
She's Jennifer Ragan-Fore, everybody. She is the Chief Experience Officer at ISTE plus ASCD. Oh, what's the new name? You're going to tell us, right?
You want me to be fired?
Well, now we can say on the podcast, stay to the end and you'll hear what she says when I ask her what the new name is. And the response is, yeah, that's a great response. I'm sure we'll figure that out very soon. But thank you so much for being a part of this. And for our listeners out there, of course, we hope to see you guys at ISTE Live. Adam and I will be doing live podcasts there as well. We'll hope to see Jennifer running around, hopefully smiling still as things are going well. If you need any pinch hitting keynotes, I'm just going to recommend Adam and myself. So just know
yes,
we're ready to step in and do the show live right there. This has been the UnDisrupted Podcast. Thank you to all our listeners out there. Be sure to subscribe and give us a review. We'd appreciate it. We might even give you a shout out on a future show. Thank you again to All for Ed for making this possible. He's Adam, and you can follow him at AskAdam3.
And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Mr. Hooker. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are better together.
And we are better undisrupted.